Hi, this is Robert Grove with Two Brothers Auto and Wego2u Mobile Mechanics in Orange County. I stumbled across this video of a DLC, just doing some routine stuff, looking around, and I have to say I really disagree with most of what's being said on this video, and so I'm putting this video together to explain how the DLC works, and in this particular case, clarify some of the things that were said by ADPTraining. And I'm sure they mean well, and in some cases there's some accuracy here, but in the first few seconds of the video, and let's see if this works right.
Complete testing of the vehicle network, among other tests.
Hopefully this will come through. I'm kind of trying something new here with some screen capture software. So one of the first things is it's standard belief that pin 4 and pin 5 are grounds, chassis ground, and sensor ground. But when I actually started to look up information on all three vehicles that I looked up, just picked at random, one European, one American car, and one Asian vehicle, pin 5 was not sensor ground. It was a redundant chassis ground, and normally unswitched power to 16, but I also found in one of the diagrams that had no power to pin 16. May have been just an error in whoever drew that particular diagram. But back further, what bothered me the most was the statements about testing.
OBD2 connector is the main testing hub for any OBD2 vehicle. Through this connector, tests can be done on the alternator, starter, power, and ground feed, and complete testing of the vehicle network, among other tests.
Sorry, guys. Doesn't work that way. You're not going to test the alternator, the DLC. If you have pin 16 powered, you'll be able to get battery voltage, yes, but that is not going to test the alternator for you. It's not going to test the battery for you. You have no way to test the starter off the DLC. Now, what can be done on some cars is through factory software, not through the OBD2 protocols, but through the factory protocols, special tests. The scanner has the ability to communicate with the PCM or the module related to activating the starter relay or fulfilling the alternator. So in those cases, you can test or at least activate tests that allow you to test, and there's always other equipment involved. And if you activate a starter solenoid and the engine cranks, I mean, that's pretty definitive test. But if it doesn't, you're still going to have to go in and do some other physical pinpoint testing. So even with that capability, if it doesn't work, you're not going to get any further testing out of the DLC, even with factory software. So it's a little bit misleading to say that you can test those things. And certainly just back probing, there's no test. There's no starter circuit, no alternator circuit at the DLC. The grounds, it's a little bit odd there because pin 5 is supposed to be a sensor ground. What would be good if we could see the PCM ground instead of just a chassis ground. Now, if we have a problem with pin 4, pin 5, and the only way you're going to know that is to do a voltage drop test. An ohms test is just simply not accurate. So if you're doing a voltage drop test and you find voltage drop on pin 4 or 5, could mean that you have a ground issue from the battery to the chassis or engine block, and that you would want to investigate. But if it tests okay there, does not mean you don't have a ground problem to the PCM. The PCM is not grounded in at least the three different vehicles that I looked at. It had no relationship to pin 4 and 5. They were separate redundant grounds. So you could conceivably have good ground to pin 4 and 5, a good chassis ground, and still have a problem with a PCM main ground. So it's important to always, always, always look up wiring diagrams. I'll show you what I mean. So we go over here and let's go over to the first vehicle. Apologize for the nasal sound. I've had a pretty bad flu for the last few days, and I'm just coming back to life. So this particular vehicle, this is 2004 VW Beetle. 2004 Volkswagen Beetle, and what we're looking at is we're looking at computer data lines, and I think I picked convertible. We could go and look at something else, but yeah, it is convertible. And what I found interesting here is that pin 1 is key on power, and pin 16 is a battery feed, but this is powered off the fuse box. This fuse could be blown, you wouldn't have any power at pin 16. If you have a scanner that powers up off of pin 16, it's not going to come on, but that doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with the vehicle itself other than missing the either blown fuse or a problem with that wire. Does not mean that the PCM is not powered up. For that, we'd have to go look at another wiring diagram to see where the PCM gets its power and its ground. If you're having communication problems, no start problems, sometimes you have to do that. You have to get the whole wiring diagram and look at everything in detail. This one also, what did I see here? Pin 4 and 5. So this is an example of, there's pin 4 and pin 5. You can see that they are redundant ground directly to a chassis ground point behind the steering column. So next, let's go take a look at the Hyundai Sonata, an Asian vehicle. So we'll look at computer data lines. Load this up just a little bit. There we go. I think we can handle that. And they're numbering from the bottom up 1 to 16, and you can see there's nothing on 16. And yet I think this one was, I believe it's pin 9, and this is where I think this could be an error. There is, I would think this is pin 16 power. Memory fuse, it's going to be 12 volts hot all the time. I don't believe that's correct. I think this should be to pin 16, but I'd have to verify that on a car. I have seen wiring diagram just faux pas where somebody booed when they drew it, and you know, like having a power feed go directly to a ground and no device in there. You know, when you look at the circuit, you go, when that switch is turned on, it's going to burn that wire up or blow the fuse. You can't take power directly to a ground. But I've actually seen that on a wiring diagram in a printed form coming from a manufacturer before. Let's take a look at pin 4 and 5. Pin 4 and 5 here. Once again, there's pin 4 coming in here. Pin 5, follow it around, and it just comes into the same connector. And where does it go? Left side of dash. This is a redundant chassis ground, and it's not in any way connected to the computer. No way it's connected to the computer. This could be perfectly good, but you could have a problem with a computer ground and never see it on this testing on this circuit. So fortunately, you know, we like to think that we can do a lot of things at the DLC, but it's really limited. It's important to have a thorough understanding of what you can do at the DLC, what the different circuits are, and also to always pull up a wiring diagram and verify that, because you will find some changes and some differences that we're seeing already. Let's go to the next vehicle. We'll go over here to back to vehicle and our Chevy Blazer. Computer data lines. So find our DLC over here, and data link connector pin 1 and 2. Pin let's see, pin 2. Pin 2 is a data line that is going to be GM's protocol. Pin 16 is hot all the time. But again, this is powered off the fuse block. This isn't going to tell me whether or not the PCM is powered, whether or not some of the other modules are powered, because depending on the wiring of that particular vehicle, it could break out somewhere out of this harness somewhere else where I could have good power on this, but I have a problem on the actual power feed to the PCM. Pin 4 and 5. Once again, they come right into, well, one comes into a body relay block. That's this circuit here. See if I can get better look. There we go. So that's pin 5 that comes down to here. And it goes to ground distribution system. And if we look at it here, and that's just one of the lines that go off of here. This also goes over here, and where does it go? Ties in the fuse box, and it goes to a chassis ground. This is actually an engine ground. So this terminates at an engine ground. I'd have to look to see where that goes. Ground distribution system. But once again, that's only going to give me a limited amount of information. And number 4, and that is certainly not, there is in no way that any of these 3 vehicles that pin 5 was a sensor ground. The sensor ground is strictly for the sensors. It attaches to nothing else on the body or the engine. It is sensored to PCM only, and it gets its ground path through the PCM. I wish they had sensor ground at the DLC. It would be really nice, but on these 3 vehicles anyway, none of them do. And pin 4 in this case is a chassis ground left end of the dash, up behind the dash. So I hope this sheds a little bit of light on DLC testing, and you know, we'll see if ADPTraining maybe gets back to me. You can reach me at info@Wego2u Mobile Mechanics. Phone number is 949-288-3506, and I probably put some kind of a, well, we'll go and show the website. That's easy enough on a video, right? One of my websites, phone number at the top also, the 877 will ring in to me. And just for the heck of it, give you a little bit of my background. Get to the right place here. Orange County Mobile Auto Repair.com has a lot of information about my credentials and my background. If you click on About Us, some of my certifications, one is that I'm a state of California licensed and certified smog instructor, and I teach automotive electronics, Wego2u testing and troubleshooting in a variety of different places. I'm also